Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. The most common form of despair is not being who you are. Once you label me, you negate me. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself. The tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule begins. Face the facts of being what you are, for that is what changes what you are. People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought, which they seldom use. Many of us pursue pleasure with such breathless haste that we hurry past it. It is so hard to believe because it is so hard to obey. Boredom is the root of all evil, the despairing refusal to be oneself. It is impossible to exist without passion. The self-assured believer is a greater sinner in the eyes of God than the troubled disbeliever. Leap of faith, yes, but only after reflection. Happiness is the greatest hiding place for despair. My sorrow is my castle. Take away the paradox from the thinker, and you have a professor. A no does not hide anything, but a yes very easily becomes a deception. Once you are born in this world, you're old enough to die. Hope is a passion for the possible. Therefore, do not deceive yourself. Of all deceivers, fear most yourself. If you want to be loathsome to God, just run with the herd. The only intelligent, tactical response to life's horror is to laugh defiantly at it. To be lost in spiritlessness is the most terrible thing of all. What is youth? A dream. What is love? The dream's content. Don't forget to love yourself. Whoever has learned to be anxious in the right way has learned the ultimate. It is better to get lost in the passion than to lose the passion. I would rather be a swineherd understood by the swine than a poet misunderstood by men. Life has its own hidden forces, which you can only discover by living. Far from idleness being the root of all evil, it is rather the only true good. People settle for a level of despair they can tolerate and call it happiness. Sleeping is the height of genius. For it is not what happens to me that makes me great, but it is what I do. Faith is the highest passion in a man. You become what you understand. Life has become a bitter drink to me, and yet it must be taken in drops, counted one by one. Be that self which one truly is. Faith begins precisely where thinking leaves off. I opened my eyes and saw the real world, and I began to laugh, and I haven't stopped since. What distinguishes all love from lust is the fact that it bears an impression of eternity. The best response to criticism is to smile and forget. The highest, after all, is not to comprehend the highest, but to do it. If you don't have many friends, that means you have a lot of life experience. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. To be human is not a fact, but a task. People understand me so poorly that they don't even understand my complaint about them not understanding me. The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you'll never have. What if everything in the world were a misunderstanding? What if laughter were really tears?
Knowledge is a wealth that cannot be stolen. It is very important in life to know when your cue comes. Cultivate the will. This is the armor that preserves the mind. My standpoint is armed neutrality. The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays. Purity of heart is to will one thing. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. The most common despair is to be in despair at not choosing or willing to be oneself. Truth always rests with the minority, because the minority is generally formed by those who really have an opinion. The present generation does not know the meaning of suffering. During the first period of a man's life, the greatest danger is not to take the risk. A man who, as a physical being, is always turned towards the outside, thinking that his happiness lies outside him, finally turns inward and discovers that the source is within him. Subjectivity is truth. Personality is only ripe when a man has made the truth his own. The paradox is really the pathos of intellectual life. Listen to the cry of a woman in labor at the hour of giving birth. Look at the dying man struggle at his last extremity, and then tell me whether something that begins and ends thus could be intended for enjoyment. Patience is necessary, and one cannot reap immediately where one has sown. Adversity draws men together and produces beauty and harmony in life's relationships, just as the cold of winter produces ice flowers on the window panes. God creates out of nothing. Wonderful, you say. Yes, to be sure, but he does what is still more wonderful. He makes saints out of sinners. What is a poet? An unhappy person who conceals profound anguish in his heart, but whose lips are so formed that as sighs and cries pass over them, they sound like beautiful music. There is nothing with which every man is so afraid as getting to know how enormously much he is capable of doing and becoming. Old age realizes the dreams of youth. Look at Dean Swift. In his youth, he built an asylum for the insane. In his old age, he was himself an inmate. Since my earliest childhood, a barb of sorrow has lodged in my heart. As long as it stays, I am ironic. If it is pulled out, I shall die. The more a man can forget, the greater the number of metamorphoses which his life can undergo. The more he can remember, the more divine his life becomes. What our age lacks is not reflection, but passion. The crucial thing is to find a truth which is truth for me, to find the idea for which I am willing to live and die. The Bible is very easy to understand, but we Christians are a bunch of scheming swindlers. We pretend to be unable to understand it because we know very well that the minute we understand, we are obliged to act accordingly. People commonly travel the world over to see rivers and mountains, new stars, garish birds, freak fish, grotesque breeds of human. They fall into an animal stupor that gapes at existence, and they think they have seen something. Most people believe that the Christian commandments are intentionally a little too severe, like setting a clock half an hour ahead to make sure of not being late in the morning. To stand on one leg and prove God's existence is a very different thing from going on one's knees and thanking Him. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. This has a deeper meaning than we might at first think. Christians remind me of schoolboys who want to look up the answers to their math problems in the back of the book rather than work them through. One must not think slightingly of the paradoxical, for the paradox is the source of the thinker's passion. The highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, nor read about, nor seen, but, if one will, are to be lived. Prayer does not change God, but it changes him who prays. It belongs to the imperfection of everything human that man can attain his desire by passing through its opposite. One can advise comfortably from a safe port. The greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. At the bottom of enmity between strangers lies indifference. What labels me negates me. A fire broke out backstage in a theater. The clown came out to warn the public. They thought it was a joke and applauded. He repeated it. The acclaim was even greater. I think that's just how the world will come to an end, to general applause from wits who believe it's a joke. There is nothing everyone is so afraid of as being told how vastly much he is capable of. You are capable of, do you want to know? You are capable of living in poverty. You are capable of standing almost any kind of maltreatment, abuse, etc. But you do not wish to know about it, isn't that so? You would be furious with him who told you so, and only call that person your friend who bolsters you in saying, "No, this I cannot bear, this is beyond my strength," etc.